Hello and welcome to my video lecture on the use of for loops in PHP code. So here we have our index PHP file. We have our PHP section at the top, our HTML section at the bottom. And what I'm going to do is we're going to set up a for loop. So a for loop starts off with the word for, as you might expect. We open up a parentheses, and inside the parentheses the for loop basically uses three arguments. The first argument is where it starts off. So we're going to start off by setting a variable counter equal to 1. So that's where it starts. So that means the counter when the for loop starts will be equal to 1. Then what we want to do is we want to add in what the criteria is going to be for when this loop ends. So in this case, we're going to test to see if counter is less than or equal to 5. And you can see these arguments are being separated by semicolons. So here's our first argument. The counter is going to start at 1. Then we're going to test to see if the counter, every time this for loop iterates, it's going to test to see if counter is less than 5. And then our last argument is how is the variable that's being used to control the iteration of this loop being incremented. More often than not, these kinds of loops are incremented by 1. So we're going to use the incrementation operator. So every time this loop's counter will be incremented by 1. It's going to start at 1. Then every time this loops, it's going to add 1 is going to be added to it. So the second time it loops, it's 2. Third time it's 3. Third time it's 4. Third time it's 5. Then the third time is 6. When it gets to 6, this expression is going to evaluate to false, and the loop will end. And so then the code that's going to be executed every time this for loop iterates is going to be contained in curly braces. And what we're going to do here is we're going to set up a message variable, and we are going to concatenate onto itself, if I could spell. So message is going to equal message, and then we can concatenate onto that the value that's in the counter variable, and then we concatenate that with a pipe. And that is what's going to happen every time this loop iterates. And then all we need to do is display the result of that looping. We'll put in a couple of breaks to give us some white space in between these two code elements, and then we'll display whatever is in message. So we're going to save that. Don't see any warning messages anywhere. We come here, we're going to refresh. This is already pointing to that index PHP file, and we get an undefined variable error message, error that the variable message doesn't exist. So let's go back and see if we can't fix that. So we're using message here in the loop. It doesn't exist. That's not a problem with counter because part of the for loops processing will be to declare this variable. So what we're going to do is before that runs, we're going to declare the message variable, and we're going to set it equal to an empty string. So we'll save that, go back to our browser, we'll refresh that, our error message goes away, and we can see that our loop iterated 5 times and then ended. So that is how you use a for loop. Again, the condition that you can test can be fairly complex. The counters can start at anything,